How do I get body fat percentage on my smartwatch? Currently I use two watches, the Galaxy Watch 4 and the Garmin. The Garmin does not have a body composition glance, while the Garmin ecosystem offers the Garmin Index 2, the Garmin Index S2 also, which then measures body composition and uploads it via Wi-Fi to Garmin Connect. It does not show up on the watch. The only thing that shows up from this measurement is the weight. It shows up in the user settings. So as of now, the Garmin does not show body fat percentage nor any of the other values that it measures with body composition, such as bone density, as well as skeletal muscle mass, the overall weight, and I think one or two other things. Now, the Galaxy Watch has the ability to measure body composition on its own. So you press a couple of buttons and then you take two fingers and then you attach them to these two buttons, which I think are metallic, which then means they can kind of take up the current the watch then I think sends through here, and then it appears again on the watch. Now what you then can do is you can measure body composition on the watch, at least given you have an external scale. So even if you don't have a body composition scale, you could still measure it with this. An additional advantage of the system would be that you could also measure body composition if you are in the gym, and the gym has just a normal scale in the changing rooms, or if you are anywhere else where you would have access to a weight scale but don't have access to your usual bioimpedance scale. So the question also is, at least in my case, what value do I use? So in my gym I do actually have a scale which is an in-body scale, which I can use in a self-service fashion that has a slightly different body composition measurement result usually compared to normal bioimpedance devices. Now I did have a previous scale which was made by Comptron, and on this scale you stand. Now the current scale, the Garmin Index S2 I use, is also just a scale you stand on. Therefore, if it shoots basically a current through your body, the way of the shortest resistance is probably the legs, whereas the in-body scale in the gym also has handles, which then allows to additionally measure the body composition of the upper body, I assume, in some way or another. The measurement that includes the upper body is usually somewhere around 5 to 7. In the last measurement it was around 8% lower compared to these devices. Not these devices, but mostly the Galaxy Watch, as well as the bioimpedance scale. Now, first of all, let's take a look at what the measurement looks like on a Galaxy Watch. So if you go to the right in my case, because there is also a widget, you then have the skeletal muscle mass as well as the body fat if you measure it on the device itself. It also gives you interpretation, so there is a green, a slight green, and also a red area, and it shows you basically the percent on the one side and the kilograms on the other side, in case you don't know which would be which. So we see that in case of the muscle mass, even though my watch is now on grayscale, I do have an above average kilogram of skeletal muscle, whereas in terms of the body fat I'm also slightly on the higher side of basically the middle one. So based on this interpretation, and of course now additionally the two interpretations are slightly different, because I assume at least it would be better to have more muscle mass, but I don't assume it would be better to have more fat, but the colors are the same even though it does not show because it's currently in grayscale. Now if I measure this on here, what I do need to do is every time I step on a scale, I need to then additionally measure it on the body composition on here. And this seems to be the only way where I can get actually the values of body composition onto one of the watches. Why would it be so useful to have it on the watch? Maybe it's just a personal preference, but I would like to have kind of very important things kind of close to me, and ideally also have to not carry my phone with me every now and then. And I also like this idea of kind of having a dashboard of my body on my wrists, kind of at the point where I can also look at, similar to a clock. My time is kind of a clock. Of course I know that there might be a time where I will not be alive, and so as the time goes on I can remind myself again and again that maybe I should rather do things now instead of 30 days or 30 years in the future. And the same to a certain extent is true with these biomarkers, and also due to the seeming relation of time as well as health. So time on its own is basically kind of infinite, you could say. At least it seems. Of course, in very long terms, it might not be infinite, as the universe might, I don't know what it does, collapse again, not collapse again. I don't know what the current theory on the universe is. But back to time and health. So as we go through time, our bodies seem to kind of erode, not due to aging maybe. Aging seems to be, or used to be kind of description for both, for basically going through time but also degrading in health. If we manage to decouple basically the degrade in health, then aging could be maybe something entirely else, one could say. The process of getting older, maybe without getting less healthier. So I try to, in the last couple of months and years, try to come up with markers, not that I came up with these markers. I try to use markers that already exist and to have not only the time on my wrist, but additionally also markers that would somehow predict my lifespan. The two most important ones is that you can also kind of measure, or estimate at least, seem to be the upper two ones you can see here, which in my case is the resting heart rate of the last 7 days. At least the resting heart rate of the last 7 days is the metric I can have shown on here. I mean, it would also be useful to have my lifetime resting heart rate, or maybe the resting heart rate at least of the current year. And then, as basically I exchange the last day in this calculation with the newest day in this calculation, which then would be always yesterday, I basically see also where I'm trending, but I would have a more midterm view, not necessarily a very long-term view, but a midterm view at least. And the other one is my VO2 max. So these predict my cardiovascular and cardiorespiratory fitness to a certain extent. And cardiorespiratory fitness seems to be correlated with lifespan. Now, there are, depending on and what paper one takes a look at, there seems to be this one paper who describes, I think, 9 hallmarks of aging. Now, there are a couple of different implementations of fitness age, bio age, and something like this. Garmin, for example, also has a fitness age, which also is shown on the watch. So here I already have one of these ages on my watch. Now, in addition, I have also these two metrics, but VO2 max, for example, I don't know if it actually contributes. I don't think it contributes to the Garmin fitness age. Only resting heart rate contributes to the Garmin fitness age. And I think the resting heart rate, I don't know which duration of time this is, but what I saw in terms of the body fat time interval that seems to contribute to the Garmin age. So the Garmin either uses your BMI, or if it has it available, your body fat. It only has it available, I think, if you have a Garmin scale, because otherwise you don't get body fat into Garmin, at least not to my knowledge. And the next thing it bases it on is also the intensity minutes that have been recorded in I don't know which time frame. And then you have your Garmin fitness age, which you also have on your watch in the user settings. Now, if we just assume now, and this is based on basically other implementations of fitness age, I have seen that there is maybe a flexibility age, maybe a cardiorespiratory age, maybe or at least not necessarily an age, but just a marker, and then you compare yourself against the population average of your age group, and also maybe your height, and so on and so forth. So cardiorespiratory would be mostly VO2 max, maybe also resting heart rate. Additionally, some implementations have blood pressure also in there. Then we have flexibility, maybe by getting these standardized, or by trying these standardized tests. There is the, I think, YMCA or something like this test, where you try to sit and reach, and basically I think measures the stretchability or flexibility of the hamstrings. But I haven't found any app or website that actually lets you input these and then also get a bio age calculation out of this. Then we would also have the strength age, and here it seems to be the easiest to measure grip strength and use grip strength as a proxy. Now, I cannot get grip strength as, at least of currently, as into Samsung Health or Garmin, and they both also don't track this metric, but I have been tracking this metric with a dynamometer, so a thing you can press basically a lever or pull a lever, and then it measures how hard you can basically grip. Now, I did find an app which now interprets this data, and this gives me also an age readout, at least if I assume, or if I input that I'm above the age of 40, which I'm currently not. there seems to be some reason why not below the age of 40, but nonetheless. So this one would also be kind of approximated with grip age, but I also currently don't have it on here. And the last one is the metabolic age, which at least in another implementation by the app I use from my fitness studio or gym, what is in there is basically the in-body measurement as well as hip and so the hip circumference as well as the waist circumference. So this calculates a waist to hip ratio, and the rest is kind of used in order to have skeletal muscle mass calculated, in order to have body fat percentage calculated. But this in theory synchronizes with Samsung Health. Now also my previous bioimpedance scale, the first one I got, also synchronizes with Samsung Health, but it did only transfer the body fat metric as well as the weight. Now the Garmin Index S2, I could get it synchronized with an app called Health Sync, which is I think only available on Android. So this connects Garmin to Samsung Health, and what is available, at least as of now, is that it additionally also transmits the metric of skeletal muscle mass, which now means that Samsung Health is able to calculate all of these. But it seems that Samsung Health does not send this data to the watch. So the watch only displays data, it seems at least, that is measured on the watch itself. So if you want, at least as of currently, the body composition as kind of a marker maybe for not cardiovascular, but metabolic health on the watch, and I think it would be very nice if I had it all in one service, maybe Garmin, or maybe I'm currently using both, then it is possible, but only if you additionally to every time you step on a scale, measure yourself with the Galaxy Watch 4 or higher, which then has the body composition feature. Maybe you also have another fitness watch which might do something different, but at least with my experience on these two systems, that's the one solution